I am addressing one of the questions that I get all of the time. And that is, I want to go to counseling. I think we need counseling, but my partner doesn't want to, isn't ready, or a whole myriad of things. I'm actually going to address multiple different facets of this. So, what can you do if you're in that position? How can you overcome these things? How do you know if you're even ready for counseling as a couple? And some really great things to kind of reflect on and to see where you're at. So, I'm going to go into all of these. And obviously, I'm talking about multiple different things that people could be experiencing, because I do get this question a lot of the time. Some people think, yes, we need it, we're ready, and then their partner doesn't agree. So this is a really important conversation. Now, the first thing that I would always say that's really, really important is you're going to choose your time and place. If you're going to talk to your partner about this, which you absolutely should, you should choose the right time and place. Avoid distractions. Don't do it if you're tired or you're stressed. You want to actually set your conversation up for success, which is very, very important. So make sure that the kids are in bed, distraction free, phones are off. Like, you can even ask, is now a good time to talk about X? Counseling or whatever we're experiencing right now. If they say no, find another time and place that's a good time. Agree to put your phones on flight mode for the 20-minute, half an hour, whatever length conversation is that you have, and really express your thoughts and feelings on this. Be authentic, be real about what's going on for you. So use I statements, because otherwise people get defensive. So I think, I feel, and also really listen to their perspective. So often what we can get stuck in the trap of is we just want to get our point across and what we think across, but actually listen to what they're saying and what's going on for them, because sometimes by doing that, they can feel very heard, validated in that process. But also, I think it's really important to know there are a lot of potentially scary ideas that people sort of have, like misconceptions in their minds about counseling. So, counseling is not about either person being right or wrong. It's about actually just addressing what needs to be addressed in a proactive way so you can move the relationship forward. So, just to give you an idea, a lot of the time it's a facilitated conversation between the couple in front of me, and it goes between what each person wants to work on. So, for example, one person might be communication, one person might be intimacy, or one person might be one particular scenario and something different from the other person. So it actually goes between those two things, but both people get to have their say in a really productive way. And then we couple that with actions and how you can tangibly move that forward. Because if you ask me, the practical thing is the most important thing, because you want to be able to move that forward in between sessions. And accountability is a massive part of that. And so if you don't have someone to hold you lovingly accountable or to tweak different strategies and things like that, then it can be kind of hard to stay on track. It's like anything new, like you think of a new exercise regime, a new diet, anything new can be tricky to stay accountable and create long lasting change. So that's where a third party, counselor, psychologist, whatever it is, can become really, really helpful. Also, it's important to highlight the benefits. So, like, what you think you would like to get from it, what you believe the benefits would be for one another. Obviously, it's deeper communication, better understanding one another, having the tools, skills, and strategies to navigate these challenges more effectively, and obviously get back to where you want to be, and or take your relationship to new heights. A lot of people think, well, I'll only go to counseling when we're in dire straits, when things are so bad that we'll go. Honestly, it is so much harder to go to counseling that from that place. And I know this because so many people do this. People on average take 6 to 7 years to actually attend counseling once the problem has first begun. So if you think about that, that is 6 to 7 years of pain, of hurt, of potentially negative, mean comments towards one another, of not feeling loved, appreciated, valued, and connected. Can you imagine what 7 years of damage does to a relationship? I can tell you that these small things stack and stack and stack and stack upon one another and create a bigger issue in your relationship. The best thing to do is never to let anything kind of fester, super gross word, I apologize, but that's what happens, is to never let anything fester, to never sweep things under the carpet, because they get you in a like 10x bigger way later on down the track. And then if you let them jump, like multiple of those happen, it becomes 100 times worse. And that's not even catastrophizing. That's a conservative estimate there. That is actually me being very conservative. I stress this so importantly because you can actually save money by going to counseling quicker. You can resolve things faster. You can not hurt each other for so long, and you can get the relationship you want much quicker. So it's actually a much faster process if you get in there straight away, get it resolved. And just to put it in perspective, I have couples come to me for pre-marriage counseling. So there's nothing wrong. They're in love. Everything's going great. They're just seeing where their values are, what they view marriage as. Like, it's a really smart thing to do. And then I have couples that come to me proactively, as in like things are going great, but sometimes they don't have time to finish conversations, or there's some little niggly thing they're getting stuck on. It's not a big thing. They are actually an awesome, amazing powerhouse couple. But life is very fast paced. Life is very stressful. And we also want to make sure we're in the best mental headspace for our kids, for our family members and friends and work. So it's actually a proactive measure. And I think we get stuck in the fact that we think counseling is for when things get really tough. Now, obviously, I have a huge, huge amount of clients in that scope as well, where things get really, really tough. And then they come to counseling. But I'm just going to let you know that it is a lot easier for you both to do it in a proactive nature. It's quicker, it's faster, and it can actually help get you back on track so much sooner. You don't have to waste all those years in this kind of holding pattern. Now, I think the other part, and I think I've already touched on this a little bit, but it's just to normalize seeking help. It's actually a sign of courage. It's actually a sign of strength. It's actually a smart move to get help rather than to wait until things are level 10, so bad, I don't even know what to do with myself. Because sometimes even when you're in that level 10 space, it's hard to get help because you're so negatively geared, like you're in a terrible headspace, right? And so it makes all of the sense in the world, and it's such a strength if you get help sooner rather than later. And I see this with couples all the time. And when they do that, they don't have the issues. They don't have as much to work through ever as other couples who wait till it's very bad and then they need all of the help for all of the things. So I think that's really important to know. So many people do this. Now, I think we all think, oh, well, we must be so bad if we do counseling. No, that's not the case at all. And sometimes a lot of your families and friends actually go to counseling and they will never tell you. A lot of people do it. Something you don't have to tell a single soul. It's very discreet. It's private. All my counseling's online, so it's even easier. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. No one has to know any difference. And I think that's important to know, that so many more people than you even know actually attend counseling. Now, sometimes it can be reassurance can be a really big piece with our partners to make sure that they feel comfortable. So sometimes people might feel like, oh, am I just going to go to counseling and they're going to tell me everything I do wrong? No. Every person has a part to play. It always takes two to tango. And neither of you are doing it wrong nor right often. Sometimes we're just misunderstanding each other, misinterpreting one another. Sometimes we just can't resolve one particular thing. You're both doing your very, very best. And this is how I always position counseling, is that I know that you're both doing your the best. I know that often you both love each other and you want this to be resolved quick, of course. And it's important to know that counseling is about growing and strengthening your relationship, never about right or wrong, ever, ever, ever. It is about what we can proactively do. So I'm very solution focused. I use very innovative techniques. So I use Imago a lot, which is a lot of the time you're not even directly one-on-one talking to me. Sometimes you are, but a lot of the time I'm facilitating a conversation between both of you, because it's twofold, right? It's actually a communication skill that you can use for any challenge that comes up, because that's obviously my intent, is to empower both of you. And it is also therapy as well. So it really kind of maximizes that time together too. Now, something that's also useful if your partner is hesitant to counseling is to suggest just trying a session or trying a few sessions to really see what it's like, and then reevaluate together, because you also want to make sure it's the right fit for both of you. And that's important to do. So propose a trial period and just say, let's give it a shot, see what happens, see what we think, see how we feel. And then you can work through that next step as we go, because sometimes it's kind of, you're scared of the unknown. You don't know what it's going to look like. You don't know what it's going to feel like. You're like, oh, how's this going to make our relationship? And I get that. And so sometimes it's important just to try just to try it, see what it's like. I also offer 15-minute free Zoom calls, so you can do that as well, which is great because I can talk to you both on Zoom. You can ask me all of the questions. That's what I'm here for. Any questions, anything you're worried about, not sure about, anything, you can ask them all in that session as well. And usually, to be completely honest and transparent, I usually just recommend to couples that we just do an initial session anyway, to check that we're a good fit, to check that like you can see how I work and that sort of thing. Because I do work quite differently to most counselors. So that's important to note as well. Now, I think the biggest next thing, if there are words you can string together in a sentence, is the stigma. Sometimes there's stigma around it. I've already addressed this, but I'm just going to emphasize it one more time. Is the goal is never to judge. The goal is always to strengthen your relationship, to give you the toolkit to help you move forward through those things. And so that's very, very important. And lastly, it's to respect their decision. So sometimes they're not ready. They just can't get themselves there, and that is okay. So remember to approach the conversation with empathy, patience, and a genuine desire to improve your relationship. So if you're yourself approaching it from a solution perspective, that is really, really great. Also, I often recommend to couples, I actually have an online couples counseling course, and it's called Relationships Turned On online course. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. One of you can do the course and take the actions to the relationship. So that's a really great option for couples who are not quite ready necessarily for both. You're both not ready to do counseling yet. That can be a good option as well. But here are some other things that I think is really, really worth considering is these following questions. So I'd just like you to take some time and reflect on these. These are questions that are great as well. You can incorporate into your discussion with your partner is these questions. So how long have you been stuck in this pattern? So whether it's a pattern around fighting or intimacy or communication or whatever it is, how long have you been stuck in this pattern? When you identify how long you've been stuck in this pattern, kind of sends alarm bells sometimes because it's like, okay, it's a bit longer than I thought. And then ask, what have you tried to resolve this? What did and didn't work? So if you ask the question, what have you tried to resolve this? And you've tried nothing and you've been stuck in it for a few months or a year or 2 years or whatever it might be, that would be a good signal that you probably do need counseling, because if you've been stuck in it and nothing's been resolved, and maybe you've been talking about it for ages, like you should do something, or you've been avoiding the conversation, putting it under the carpet, thinking I'll get around to that later because it's too triggering, another good sign that counseling is probably really useful for you. And so the next thing to think about is, how can you create long-lasting, sustainable change around this situation? A lot of people will be like, well, we've been fighting for 10 years, 3 years, 4 months, and we'll figure it out ourselves. That's cool. Absolutely go for it. But what I would normally say is most of the time they end up in counseling because they haven't known what to do to get out of that pattern. And when you don't know you just don't know what you don't know, right? And it's not anyone's fault. I always say that there's not enough relationship education out there, hence I do what I do. And I think it's such a disservice. Like, I personally believe it should be in schools. Anyway, not going to go on that rant. But, we haven't been taught this like we should be. Like, our whole world is built on relationships, yet we're not taught the fundamental skills. Like, personally, I think it's bananas. So I think the thing is to take the stress and the pressure off yourself. You haven't been taught it. If you don't have the skills, then how are you going to break out of it? So I think that's another thing to think about. And the other thing to think about is what will hold you accountable. So counseling actually does hold you accountable. Okay, well, these were the actions we talked about. Where are you at with them? What was it? How did it go? What do we need to tweak? What do we need to change to create a process that's built in, that works in your lifestyle? Because I get it. Everyone's different. Some people have no kids. Some people have 10 kids. Some people have 20 dogs. Obviously, I'm being, exaggerating a smidge, but it's true, right? We all have different circumstances, different hats and different responsibilities that we have in our lives. So it's important to make sure we can create long-lasting, sustainable change for your relationship. And it looks different for every single couple. So I guess that's the next question, is how will you ensure this change will stay in place? So let's say you're going to do it on your own. How long has this been happening? How long can you ensure this change stays in place? And what can we actually do about it? Do you know what to do about it right now? These are really good reflection questions to think about. And often the case is that maybe you do know a couple of things, but you're not quite sure, or you're both not on the same page around it. All of those things really indicate that counseling will be very useful. Okay. And the next question is, how does not getting support help or not help? I know it's a really funny, weird, strangely worded question, but I think it's useful to look at the other side. Okay, well, so if you're not going to get support, then how are you going to flip out of this? What can you do? Do you know? It's a useful question because the ultimate goal is always to get your relationship to the strongest, unshakable place that where you're loved, connected, feeling appreciated, and grateful for one another. So that's so important. Now, I know there's many other important options to consider when we're talking about counseling. So there's different options, different people, all of those types of things. So the first thing I always think about if you're going to choose a counselor or someone to work with is, do you gel with that person? What's their overall demeanor? What's their method? How do they work differently than others? What qualifications do they have? How do they help you move forward? Do they use innovative methods, or is it sort of like a little bit outdated? Like, all of these things are really good considerations. So for example, like I would tell clients, like, just what I've said before, it's not a lot of me just like talking at you. Of course I do at times, but it's you both facilitating conversation between you to reach your goals. I literally start with your main things that are front of mind, your main concerns, your main challenges, and we just start right there. Don't go into anything else to begin with. We just start exactly what your challenges are so you get the most out of the time. Like I said, I use very innovative solutions at Margot Therapy. I have way too many degrees. So a biomedical degree, a postgrad in teaching, and a master's in education, guidance, counseling, and careers. So I have a full array plus a million other things, but let's just not go there right now. But I have a full array that really helps support you. And I think the biggest thing as well is I look at the physiological changes that need to occur between a couple that helps shift it. And a lot of that comes through, obviously, through my studies in biomed and other studies I've done. So that's really important to look at. I'm very solution, very practical based. That is pretty much my predominant method. I have so many other things I draw from, but if needed, but they are the main things that I believe that I've seen help couples really move forward. So I think they're really good considerations. And I always say as well, I just love to sprinkle a little bit of lightheartedness into sessions. I don't believe sessions need to be this arduous thing. For the life of me, cannot figure out why we look at counseling like that. I will often be having a laugh or joke at the right appropriate time. Let me put that out there with clients, because why can it not be something that you get a good joke here and there, some lightheartedness when appropriate? Like, why can it not be? And it can be. So that's how I work. It's a little quite different, but I really hope this video has helped you, because I know it can be a really challenging time when you're not on the same page around this. So what I'll do as well is I'll pop the links below. I'll pop the link to the 15-minute free call, pop the link to my online course. And if you have any other questions, please feel free, drop them in the comments below. I'm more than happy to make you another video to address other questions that you might have.